Hello and welcome to Full-Time Live with Fulhamish. My name is Jack Collins and I will be your host today. And joining me, Mr. Farrell Monk. How are you, my friend?
Hello, friends and family. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. And Mr. Nathan Martin, our favourite American. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little red-faced, I'm realizing. I'm looking at the thing. I was out bike riding in a cold day, so I look like I've been, I don't know. But I'm good
December,
otherwise.
Nate. It's December.
It's December. I know. It's just like a little wind chap. So, I am what I am after that performance. So
I hope you have like a little screen on the front of it, like where ET should go.
Exactly. No, I thankfully had my day sort of better sorted out. So the biking was before the football. Have to have priorities sorted out, man. You got to have priorities.
These are the important matters as ever discussed on Fulhamish. Right, let's get into this game. Fulham lost 2-0 to Manchester City at the Etihad in a result that we perhaps not hoped for, but it was potentially predicted. And we didn't get battered, Farrell, which is a decent thing to take out of this. But also, our performance reasonably solid, especially in the second half.
Yeah, definitely, especially in the second half. And I think that's slight credit to Scott Parker here because many teams, especially when they go up against some of the top teams, and any team in the Premier League, that they go 1-0 down early doors and they'll just try and chase the game as much as possible and just and let those floodgates open. But as we would have seen with Fulham earlier on this season and in the Premier League in recent memory, but no, we didn't see that from Fulham. We were calm, we were professional, and it was nice to see. And we have been a little bit critical of Scott Parker in the past of being a bit reactive, a bit slow to change things, but I don't think we needed to. And Scott Parker was, credit should go to him. There are more experienced managers in this league. Just got to look at Burnley last week and Sean Dyche. That is a proverbial floodgates. But we decided to defend well. We decided to stick to our task and stick to the game plan. Yes, they had to alter things tactically, especially in the second half, and it worked reasonably well. De Bruyne hit the bar second half, but I can't really picture another real clear-cut opportunity, really.
Yeah, Nathan, I was going to take it on to Burnley last week because obviously we saw them concede an early goal to City and then the floodgates opened and it was 5-0, but could have and maybe should have been 6 or 7 if we're being perfectly honest. It didn't feel like that with Fulham today. Yes, Areola made a couple of excellent saves in the first half, but on the whole, the defensive account of ourselves that we've given there wasn't shambolic by any stretch of the imagination.
No, and let's be honest, like the City side that tore Burnley apart last week was a City side that's at the peak of their form. I mean, they just sliced a Sean Dyche, who's normally a pretty stalwart team and actually performed really well against Everton today. City made them look silly last week. And so, watching our first couple matches in the Premier League this year and seeing City play last week, you could expect that we could have some troubles, but we actually played pretty well. And it takes us back to that FA Cup game where we had this similar thing happen where Ream made a very stupid error early in the match. And then it sort of just, things fell apart and we sort of stumbled along. This game, yes, Sterling scores that first goal. And I forget which commentator made the point, but it looks like a very simple ball from De Bruyne, but it's really not. Like he weights that thing absolutely perfectly. Sterling finishes it. It's a great goal. Second goal is a bit weak, but still, it's what happens. But for the most part, Fulham played really well, and our defense, our back line communicated well. We didn't see Mendy, we didn't see Aina getting exposed, horribly like we did against Everton. And so there was a lot of things to take away. I think the only thing that sort of concerned me in this match was just we just didn't have a lot of nous going forward. We didn't have that sort of spark or verve. That's maybe just a risk that you have to take. Scott played his cards pretty well. We get one goal late in this game. We're right back in it. Maybe we nick a point. So, I don't have too many complaints other than, it would have been great if we could have avoided conceding one a bit early.
Yeah, and then there was a lot of thing about the game plan going out the window straight away, and then the commentary spoke about it. But I mean, this was the point I was going to make, but it's kind of phrased better here. Is that we watched that game and thought, and my dad came back in at halftime. He was like, "How we playing?" I've been listening on the radio, and I said, "We've been all right. We're just playing a very, very good side." And that's what it felt like. It was that, we gave a very decent account and we were outplayed by a better side. Yes. And I think this is a valid point from Alan James as well, that City only had to play half pace second half. And it was quite a relaxed and easy kind of City side that we saw in that second half. But, you know, we've seen them cut sides open at that pace before. And, you know, it's not going overboard. It's just looking at that and going, okay, we lost today. It was difficult conditions. And, you know, we got 3 points that we weren't perhaps expecting on Monday, and now have come up against a very good City side and not disgraced ourselves. And I think that's important for morale, Farrell.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think we should talk. We could talk about Man City's attacking play, and I wouldn't necessarily put it down to bad defending at all. I mean, Kevin De Bruyne in full flow is just a joy to watch. You know, he's able to pick the ball up in sort of deep positions, drive with it, and really expose just the minute defensive frailties. And you know, the whole of the City forward line are able to just, you know, pick apart and play it with such ease and quick. The tempo is just frantic. You know, if you're a defending player against that, you don't know whether they're going left, right, up, down, through your legs or anything like that. I think it's just such a difficult thing to try and stop. And, you know, we did manage to keep them at bay a lot of the times, but, you know, they did get their 2 goals. They might have got 3 or 4, but to be honest, overall, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the performance. I'm okay with the performance defensively. I'm okay with the performance overall. Yes, I feel like tactically the setup at the front, you know, with the three of Lookman, Ruben Loftus-Cheek and even Cavallero, trying to sort of, you know, I thought we were a bit toothless, trying to pick that ball up, you know, high up the pitch. And City found it very, very easy to you know, find that extra man in the middle of the park, whether it was Rodri or Gundogan or Kevin De Bruyne picking the ball up from deep, and they're able to, you know, pick that ball up, turn with ease, and then drive at our defending players. But, you know, it got better as the game went along, that's for sure.
I want to come on to Ruben Loftus-Cheek in a minute, but first, Nathan, there's a brilliant question from Luke Aleli here, who wanted to talk about Anthony Robinson, and seeing as he's your countryman, I thought this would be one for you. And he was brilliant again today, wasn't he?
Yeah, and you know, I sang the praises of Tim Ream, and Ream has, you know, become an elder statesman and sort of will do his part from the bench, unfortunately, a bit more. And Anthony Robinson is keeping that full America connection going strong. And it's not just, you know, because he is my countryman that I've sort of we sing his praises. He's just been very class, just professional. Like what he did in that side today, there were a couple times where maybe he held on to it a bit too long, but just his speed and pace and being able to move up the pitch but also be able to track back and not getting sort of caught out. You know, he's facing some of the best attacking players in the world. And actually that entire back line looked well up for the challenge today. And it made me think, you know, I said this before the match, I cannot believe Tosin we got him for $2 million, because he looked fantastic today. He's a young 23-year-old that you can build a defense around. You know, same thing for Anthony. We have actually the makings of a very good back line that we can grow with for some time. And I'm sure you'll come on to in a second, but Zambo was absolutely class again today. I mean, Anguissa, just the number of times he could hold it up with being swarmed with City players. You know, the only problem is just he doesn't have a release valve. Lookman couldn't really create the sort of presence that he needed up top. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, I'm sure we're going to talk about his sort of disappearing role today. But I mean, you know, there are a lot of promising things. And yes, the Americans have our very small role to play in that.
Yeah, I think there's slightly more than that. I mean, there was a couple of comments on Ruben Loftus-Cheek. This one from Jimbo Bob, slightly harsh perhaps, but there was, I think, something, you know, valid here. And Cameron Patterson says, is Loftus-Cheek the answer is Kenny in terms of creativity? And I think this is important, Farrell, because there's so much here, and I can see what Scott was trying to do. He was trying to play with a 3 up front that could morph into a 3 in midfield if we were getting overrun, but it didn't feel like we were doing that, and it ended up being Loftus-Cheek back to goal, trying to hold the ball up and bring other players into play, and he was aerially bullied by Ruben Dias, and therefore couldn't bring other people into play. He didn't drop into the middle to stop the overloads, which happened at the start of that first half. And in the second half, he was better. You know, he was better. He had a little bit more influence on the game. But if we were going to play him as a 9, as a hold-up man, it doesn't make any sense to put him in there ahead of Alexander Mitrovic.
Yeah, I felt that when I was watching it to start off with, and Ruben Loftus-Cheek's positioning and the way that the Fulham set up in that first half was very much reminiscent of how Spurs set up, and that sort of like Ruben Loftus-Cheek almost playing as a Harry Kane sort of role that we've seen seeing him in this position, you know, with Son or Lucas Moura playing off him. You know, there were quite a narrow two players playing off him. This is a new sort of role for Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Yes, he does sort of play in that central attacking midfield role, but you know, where we've seen him at his best in previous iterations, especially when he was at Crystal Palace, was sort of a deeper sort of number 10, or not necessarily an 8, but just sort of like a little bit deeper and driving into the space and, you know, asking real questions of the defense in one-on-one situations, almost like the way that Anguissa powers through the midfield when he's on the ball. So, you know, I think we can give him time to sort of adapt to that position. I do agree that Tom Cairney does give us a little bit else in creativity, but I can't see Tom Cairney ever playing in that sort of role where, especially, you know, with the back to goal and trying to sort of hold up the ball, let it off to someone, and then driving at the defense and getting into the box. I just don't think that's Tom Cairney's role. We all know what Tom Cairney can do. I just don't think that's it.
Yeah, but I mean, I think there's a flip here. Can you play them together? Do you flip the tactics? I didn't think that was necessarily the right move, and I guess it goes on to Mitrovic, right? That becomes the big question, and the fact that he didn't come off the bench today, like, you can see what Scott's trying to do with a little bit of pace on the break, with bringing on, you know, Kamara there to run that role and try and get off the shoulder. But even then, it felt like the ball wasn't sticking hugely, and the fact that Mitrovic looked, you know, a little bit fed up on the sideline, cause for concern, Nath, or are we just looking at rotation here?
No, honestly, it's probably one of, like, I hate being overly strategic about this, but it's probably one of the more encouraging things about this new formation. Like, we got the win the other night without Mitro having to play a huge role. And today, I really don't think it's a great use of his legs to spend 90 minutes running around, you know, the back line, trying to nick something off of a City side that are in as good a form as they are. And particularly right now, like we've talked about this before, but, you know, Mitro has played a ton of minutes both for club and country in the last, you know, 16 months or 12 months or whatever you might have it. And for me, you know, he came into this season, we've talked about this before, you know, a little bit hampered, not at 100%. And so in these sort of round of games, I would not be surprised to see him come back for Liverpool. I think, you know, he could really potentially feast on that beat up back line of Liverpool right now. There's a real opportunity there. But I honestly would love Mitro just to have a bit of time to rest, recharge. We need him at 100%, particularly for the games against West Brom, against Burnley, you know, the sort of ones where we're going to need to pick up 3 points and where his skill set can really come in to the sort of the best that it could be. I think if we had, you know, picked up a goal and it was 2-1 going in the last 15 minutes and Scotty had a sub left, or you might have seen Mitro come on. But I think having Kamara come on, just chase for the rest of the match, is probably the right decision. And as long as Mitro is, you know, being handled correctly and being talked to and sort of his head's in the right place, I think it's nothing but good for Fulham.
I'll take that on to you, Farrell. I mean, do you expect to see him back in the side for Liverpool? Because it seems like, you know, 3 games with him out in a row with no injury where he's been on the bench feels a lot, especially if, you know, we're going back into a home game where we discussed his rotation might be a bit more, on the away, we play on the break a bit more. I understand it's Liverpool. You know, we're talking about the champions here. They're an incredibly good side. But if we are at home, do you expect to see Mitro and by extension Tom Cairney in the side again? Or do you think that this will continue to be the way that we play?
I think there's a multitude of things there. I think I certainly wasn't, you know, if it was me, I certainly didn't expect Mitrovic to slot straight back in there for Liverpool, considering the size of the task at hand is very much the same as what we saw today. But then Nathan does make a very good point that they are a depleted back line. You know, we are seeing, you know, Matip, who's just coming back from a long-term injury, and Fabinho's obviously playing out of position. I think he's probably going to be back fit for that game. Oh no, he's out. He's out for a long time. I do apologise. So yeah, they are somewhat depleted, you know.
And Alisson's out as well as a keeper. So
it kind of reminds me of when Fulham won 3-0 against Manchester United all those years ago, when they were playing Richie DeLate and Michael Carrick at centre back, and we absolutely run riot against them. You know, we had Bobby Zamora, who was, you know, in peak Bobby Zamora, absolutely destroying them. And hopefully we can probably see Mitrovic there. But I think considering the way that we've been playing so far, and, you know, it is against the champions, I can't see that we would decide to change it that massively, because as we have seen, when you, with or without Mitrovic, you change the whole style of play that Fulham have to do. And, you know, if we're starting to get used to this system and it's actually paying dividends, I think we should stick for it for the time being.
Can I take it on a little bit further and say that we look to change that style with crossing, right? The way that you get Mitrovic into the game is you put dangerous balls into the box. Our two best crossers of the ball are probably Kenny Tete, who's injured and it looks like he's about to come back, but we don't have that yet. And also Joe Bryan, who has currently been kept out of the side by Anthony Robinson for a fair reason. And we discussed Robinson earlier, obviously. And without those two and the deliveries they can put into the box, there's not a huge amount of creative, wide play that is going to put the ball on Mitrovic's head. And is that playing into this, you think, Nate? Is it that he just doesn't necessarily suit the shape of this side right now? Look, with Tete back, that might change. Because you have a player that can stick the ball on a dime in the middle of the 6-yard box, but right now we don't have that player.
Yeah, I agree that our crossing is a little bit suspect. I do think there's sort of a role for Mitro where you have Lookman or you have these overlapping runs where Lookman and Robinson go off of each other, and then you look to cross it or play it back to the 6-yard box and have someone finishing. I think Mitro, is better in that position. And I want to kind of flip it around because I was just thinking, like, I agree you don't want to mess with the system too much. And if you're thinking, that you want someone that's a bit more fast, a bit more physical, and that's not Mitro, what about like subbing in Kamara for Ruben Loftus-Cheek? Like Kamara is a bit pacier. He's got the speed. He can move around. He can run with the ball a bit better. And maybe it opens up something. I get the thing of not messing with a system that's working, but I'm just not convinced that Loftus-Cheek is providing that much going into our next match against Liverpool.
Yeah, I think there's an added dynamic that we have 2,000 fans hopefully turning up next time, and we know Mitrovic absolutely thrives on having fans at his back and tries to cheer up the crowd as much as possible. So maybe that's an added dynamic that we haven't considered just as yet.
Yeah, it crosses things over a little bit, right? And that's why it's a bit confusing. I want to take one more player before we move it on, and that is Ademola Lookman. Thoughts on Lookman today? Played well, slightly unlucky. There's a couple of varying opinions here, right? Lookman needs to pass the ball is the split, but often looks to beat his man straight away. It's something we haven't seen much of, right? Actually, a player going at a winger going at a defender, and it's something that people like seeing, something that I enjoy seeing. But it does have its limitations if you start to turn over the ball a lot. And there's a kind of combination here where we want exciting players like Lookman to have a go at players, but equally, if there is a pass on, you've got to take it. And he's probably just learning that with this side a little bit.
Well, yeah, I think that, if we talk about the crossing of the, we're not crossing the ball as much as we are because we don't have Mitrovic in there. Where else are we going to get goal scoring opportunities from? We need our wingers, therefore, sort of taking on players and beating a man and trying to get scoring opportunities from there. Or you try and play it intricately outside the box and try and work your way into the box slowly. And with Lookman, you kind of have both those options, and especially with Ruben Loftus-Cheek as well. I'm okay with the fact that he can take players on and whatnot. What I don't like is what players like Ivan Cavallero likes to do is when you actually have those counter-attacking opportunities, he seems to always take the wrong option. He'll always try and take a shot on, or he'll take an extra touch, or he just doesn't have that dynamism and decision-making ability that I do see from Ademola Lookman. I didn't see very much. In all honesty, that I would say today that Lookman made a bad decision. To be honest, I thought he was fine. It was against a very difficult Man City team. If he did try and sort of get round a player, there's another player trying to nick it off him too because he didn't have much ahead of him.
Yeah, I think part of the problem today was just City is so much quicker. Their midfield tracks back so quickly, and so Lookman, who normally beat one or two players and then have a bit of space, you've got another two players that are surrounding him and suffocating him. I think he lost his head a little bit today. There were a couple times where I don't think his touch is quite the level that it was. But at the same time, I don't really mind it. We need players who run at people. I thought Cav was another good example where Cavallero tracked back and pressed really well, worked hard, but I thought he made the wrong decision. He's shooting from 40 yards out. You're never going to beat Edison from that angle. And so, you see kind of bits and pieces, but just not sort of that killer instinct, not what we sort of need. But look, man, I just let the kid play. Can we also just can we have a moratorium on talking about his penalty miss against West Ham? The kid has slotted it away. He's come back. He's done what he needed to do. If I have to, I'm so tired of hearing announcers talk about that. This, you would think the guy literally pulled down his pants and soiled the flag in front of the Queen. I mean, it's come on, it's just a mistake. It's not a big deal. Kids moving on.
That's the very, very American way of putting that, and it's made me smile, Nathan. So at the end of the day, that's it. It's part of the Fulham bingo now, alongside Anthony Robinson's move to Milan and all the the 100 million that we spent that keeps going up to 200 million to 300 million to 5 billion. I just want to finish this with the thoughts of literally a random Man City fan. He says, "I think you played well today," and on that bombshell, I think we are done. And thank you so much to Mr. Farrell Monk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Mr. Nathan Martin. I've
Good
been
job.
Jack Collins. This has been Fulhamish Full Time. No points for Fulham at the Etihad, but a decent performance. And we come back to play the champions at Craven Cottage with fans next week, in some spirits at least. Take care. Enjoy your weekends, gang. Peace. Thank you for watching.
Toodles.
Toodles.